The United States has, without a doubt, the most powerful and technologically advanced military in human history. But what happens when all that power gets challenged by an opponent with just a tiny fraction of its resources? Well, we're about to dive into a modern-day David and Goliath story, where the very ideas of strength and weakness are getting completely turned on their heads. And this is the real head-scratcher, isn't it? How can a military machine with a practically unlimited budget be so seriously challenged by a nation that's been squeezed by sanctions and is running on maybe 2% of that budget? It's a question that's making everyone rethink what power even means in a fight today. Just take a second and let that number sink in. $1 trillion. That's roughly the annual military spend for the United States. It's enough to buy the most futuristic jets, the biggest navy you can imagine, all the bleeding-edge tech. This is Goliath, no question about it. So where did the first cracks in that trillion-dollar armor start to show? Well, according to our source material, it all started up in the skies over the Middle East, the one place where American dominance was supposed to be completely, totally absolute.
And this was the official word coming right from the top. On March 19th, the message was crystal clear. Iran's military capability, its navy, its air force, its air defenses were, and I quote, gone. The U.S. had, for all intents and purposes, declared total victory in the air.
But then, talk about a plot twist. Just a few hours after that declaration of victory, the entire story got flipped on its head. Iran started releasing reports, even a video, claiming they had scored a direct hit on an American F-35, the famous invisible stealth fighter.
And that's the billion-dollar question, right? Actually, it's more like a trillion-dollar question. The whole point of the F-35 is its ability to be a ghost, to completely evade radar. So if you can't even see it on a screen, how in the world are you supposed to shoot it down?
Well, the way they allegedly did it is this fascinating example of clever thinking versus just throwing money at a problem. So instead of trying to find it with radar, Iran reportedly used sensors to look for something else, the jet's massive engine heat signature. An F-35 might be a ghost to radar, but it's like a bonfire in the sky when it comes to heat. And once they had a heat lock, they apparently fired a modified Russian missile from the 90s. We're talking about a 30-year-old weapon tweaked to take down one of the most expensive planes ever built. This is huge because it suggests there's a cheap, asymmetric way to defeat a multi-trillion-dollar investment. And get this, the F-35 wasn't just a one-off. The source we're looking at claims that in only 3 weeks, Iran also managed to take down 12 of those advanced MQ-9 Reaper drones. That's nearly $200 million in sophisticated tech, all destroyed by an air defense system that was supposed to be gone. The problems weren't only in the air either. Out at sea, where the U.S. Navy is the ultimate symbol of American power projection, the story got just as strange. So, how did the world's greatest Navy handle the situation?
Okay, before we get into what happened, you have to understand the sheer force of a U.S. carrier's strike group. It's not just a ship, it's a floating fortress. You've got the nuclear-powered carrier at the center, surrounded by destroyers, submarines. It's a whole fleet carrying an air force that could go toe-to-toe with a small country. And the U.S. sent 2 of these massive groups to the region. So you have the pride of the fleet, the brand-new, super-advanced USS Gerald R. Ford. And what takes it out of action? Not an enemy missile, not a torpedo, but a fire. A fire that apparently started in the laundry room. It raged for 30 hours and got so bad that this $13 billion warship had to be pulled off the front line entirely. The source even floats the idea that something this bizarre might point to a bigger problem, like seriously low crew morale. Then you've got the second carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln. And here, the story you get depends on who you ask. Officially, the U.S. said it was business as usual, dominating the airspace. But independent reports claim that after Iran apparently lobbed some ballistic missiles its way, the whole strike group pulled back, 1,000 kilometers away from Iran's coast, basically putting it out of range and out of the fight because they were worried.
Okay, so the air assets were challenged, the naval assets were challenged, but what about that ground-based shield? The supposedly foolproof system designed to protect all the U.S. bases and allies?
This shield is the best of the best. We're talking about things like the THAAD and Patriot systems. These are multi-billion-dollar marvels of engineering with one single critical job: to create an impenetrable dome and stop any incoming missiles from Iran. They're designed to literally hit a bullet with another bullet. But according to the source, that shield was breached in a really big way. Early on, Iran allegedly hit and destroyed an ANS/FPS-132 radar system.
And this wasn't just some random piece of equipment. This thing was the eyes of the entire U.S. operation in the region, a $1.1 billion asset with a mind-boggling 5,000-kilometer range, just gone.
The loss of that radar had a global domino effect. To try and plug the giant holes in its Middle East defense network, the U.S. was reportedly forced to start pulling critical Patriot missile systems from all the way over in East Asia. That means weakening your defense in one crucial part of the world just to shore it up in another.
And all of this brings us to what might be the most important part of the whole puzzle, because this isn't just about the technology, it's about the strategy, or lack thereof, behind it.
What the source material suggests is a fundamental clash of strategies. On the one side, you have the U.S. approach, which seemed unplanned, even contradictory. One day it's threats of massive retaliation, the next it's asking for a pause. But on the other side, Iran's actions appeared disciplined and focused, with clear goals and a willingness to play the long game.
The argument being made is that while America might have the biggest, sharpest sword in the world, its effectiveness is being called into question. It really makes you think of that old saying, a sword is only as good as the person holding it.
And that really leaves us with this final, crucial thought. As warfare keeps changing, this whole situation forces us to ask a really tough question. When you're up against an opponent who is determined and strategically smart, is having the best tech in the world really enough to